Allow me to beg your indulgence for one moment. This is the artist formerly known as Damian Sandow, now known as Aaron Stevens, and you're listening to the Talk and Roll Express with Lewis, Thomas, Oliver, and Cameron, covering everything from murder mysteries to union stabs and always getting the job done straight from the enclosed pool area. You're welcome.
Right, guys. Bad Blood 2004. Initial impressions of this pay-per-view.
Fine. I personally think this was a great pay-per-view event. It's one of those, I think it's typical of that period in the mid-2000s where Vince did have that stacked toy box full of wrestling figures, but he knew what to do with it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I didn't think this was a great card. I thought it was decent. It was very hit and miss. And it's that whole where you always remember the finish, which is fine. But looking back at the actual card itself, some of the matches, there was some misfires there. And this was just basically a prelude to the main event. There was not much interest or investment put into the rest of the card. This was just like the rest of the matches were placeholders for Triple H versus Shawn, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I was going to also agree with that, but I was going to say this also reminded me of, ironically enough, the Bad Blood 97. Like, in some aspects, like if you watch the opening package for that, the champion Brett is barely in it. In fact, I don't even think he's in it at all. It's all highlighting the cage match with Michaels, just like here. And it's also, obviously, this is taking time at that, maybe a period where it's preferably swept under the rug when Benoit was the placeholder, the champion on Raw. And he's not really being utilised like a world champion, if that makes sense. Like, he's on paper he should be the face of the company, but he doesn't really come across that way. And weirdly enough, it also reminded me of, you know, the way that Brett was handled in his last couple of months up until his departure. And obviously at Bad Blood 97, everyone remembers he wasn't in the main event. He was in a tag match with Davey against, you know, the Patriot and Bleep. But it's kind of a similar situation here, and I'm really looking forward to discussing Benoit as this goes on.
Can I say something quickly? Why was Edge on the poster? That really threw me because...
They just do that though. Like Shamrock was on the poster for Over the Edge 98 and he wasn't on the card.
I think he was making a comeback or something.
Well, yeah, because at Mania 20 they highlight the whole broken neck thing. He was off with surgery and he was coming back, so that was probably what it was. Yeah.
Was that not this Mania?
Well, he's had a few broken necks over the years. Let's just, you know, it's hard to keep on top. Like, Angle's far and away in the race of broken necks, but, you know, Edge isn't that far behind.
Can you imagine Vince was booking it at this time, like Halo on a pole match or something like that?
Neck brace on a scaffold. Anyway, yeah, right, should we just get into the first one, which is Benoit and Edge versus La Resistance. I mean, you know, Edge comes out, obviously he's, you know, making his big return and that, and then Benoit comes out, and I was thinking, what the fuck is Benoit coming out for? Like, is he here to announce Edge's new partner? Like, what's the reason I'm bringing Edge and Benoit out? And of course it's not. Benoit is the tag partner, and it's like, does the world champion really belong in the first match? No,
and this summed up exactly what you were saying there, but the idea Benoit is that kind of placeholder champion and not that kind of investment on him, and this isn't revisionism. This is what was happening at the time. You're right. He's fighting in 2 matches a night, which is fair enough. But he's coming out. He's a world champion, which, depending on where the wind blew at this point in WWE, what was the more important championship? Their world title or the big gold? I think it depended on who's really holding it. And Benoit coming out to team up with Edge in a tag team match just seemed a weird way to me to open the show.
Well, I was going to save this discussion for later on, but we might as well use it now. Did you ever get the feeling that they were trying to almost utilise him like he was the hitman of the noughties? Like, you know, both small, kind of smaller compared to the guys that preceded them, both Canadian, both work that extra kind of snug style, both work multiple matches on the card. But whereas the difference was obviously from about 92 till 96, they had basically built up Brett as undefeatable. Like, he didn't take that many L's during that stint, and obviously Benoit's a much, much different case. They haven't had that 4 years of building him up. Like, when I was watching, obviously he's on 2 matches in this card, and it was reminding me of Brett at the first In Your House when he went against Takushi at the first match, and then he was Jerry Lawler in the kind of the sub-main event. But that was what this reminded me of a lot. I felt like got strong Hitman vibes If that makes sense.
Do you know, I didn't even think of that, but I wouldn't disagree.
Well, there's the shot in the main event promo of Chris in the dungeon, and I thought it doesn't get much more on the nose than that, does it?
I think, yeah, it's always one of those, when you look back on his title reign, it was a very fragile title reign as well. It was just a case of, I think they just wanted to put the strap on him as a piecemeal offering, and if they could have, they would have taken it off him that night at Mania.
Mm-hmm. Well, even getting into La Resistance, I mean, it's a
they're all Canadian. They might not be all built from Canada, but they're all Canadian.
Yeah. I mean, let it not be said that.
It was an okay opener. It was just kind of, it just felt weird for me to see. It felt more like an angle than a match for Benoit coming out as world champion, but he's got a tag team title. I don't know. Do you need your world champion to have a tag team title belt as well? I don't know. I don't think so. I know it's been done, but
it felt like a setup to being beaten up by Kane. But I'm not entirely sure why he had to be put into a tag team match. Why couldn't you have been beaten up backstage or something? But
yeah,
again, I suppose in the world of wrestling and the world of kayfabe, getting beaten up backstage and just being like thrown around into some fucking tomato cans is more physically damaging than wrestling an entire match, then being beaten up by your rival for the evening.
Yeah, it felt like a kind of last-minute attempt to build up some kind of imaginary story between Kane and Chris, despite the fact it was a very what the fuck main event. I mean, I'll be honest, I actually forgot Chris was the world champion going into this, and even during the kind of the pre-match promo, it does that kind of typical Naughties thing where it gets halfway through the promo, and then obviously they've run out of storyline, so they just use a montage of them ragging on other people to like drown in pool or saliva or.
I would see them about used in this case, but the Benoit finale, as I mean, you make a good point about the kind of endurance and the aspect that he's already fought a 10-minute match. So, what conditions you're going to be in to fight Kane? But Kane's build here is this like mad evil demon monster. So, does he really need an advantage of the guy half his size being a bit tired?
Yeah, it's just. I liked this match, and I liked the chaos it brought and the chaos it implied. But yeah, as opening matches go, I suppose it does the job in setting the scene and setting the.
Do you know what it was for me? It was the fact that the tag team titles didn't seem to mean anything here because you've got the world title on display, and that just seemed to dwarf everything, in my opinion. Like, how can Benoit be like, oh, great, I'm tag team champion, but I'm also world champion. I've got a match later on, so this is kind of like not really that important.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There was one great spot when they go to double, when La Resistance got to double suplex Edge, and Edge flips over them and gives them the double neck.
That was cool. That was cool.
I just want to give a special shout out to that fan in the crowd. Whenever there was a false finish, he would hold up the big cardboard sign that had 2 written on it. I just thought that was glorious. That was absolutely magnificent. So it was right. Next up, Jericho versus Tomco. This was atrocious. So I don't want to get everyone's hopes up watching this, but oh god, this was awful. This was very, very bad.
Yeah, I'd actually forgotten about. I forgot about Tyson Tomco. I don't even know if I remember Tyson Tomco. No offense to him, sure he's a nice guy. But yeah, I mean, like, the Jericho owe somebody money.
Well, no, because I was trying to jog my memory of like storylines around about this time, and the whole thing. If you remember the Mania, this must have only been like a month, 2 months removed from Mania, and that because the angles still seem pretty fresh. But the story with Jericho was that he and Christian were feuding for the attention of Trish, and obviously I think the storyline in that was that Christian had inadvertently ended up, or Jericho had ended up, whatever it was, Trish ended up getting smacked by one of them, and obviously, you know, this being WWE in 2004, she ends up falling in love with the guy that hit her, which was Christian, and you know, but obviously Christian's not here. I'm assuming he was injured or that because he's, you know, Jim Ross makes the announcement that he was at the house. So it's very hard to get invested in an angle where 1/3 of it isn't there. You know.
Yeah, this wasn't great. It's still one of the better matches we've watched over the course of this podcast. Let's be honest, it's probably still in the top half.
I mean, for a Jericho match, I was expecting this thing to get dragged over the 50% mark. I mean, is that really too much to ask?
You're only as good as the car you're driving.
Yeah, I mean, this match was about 6 minutes long, and I think it overstayed its welcome.
It was only 6 minutes. Jesus Christ!
There was no hook. There was no nothing, because obviously Tomco was Christian's bodyguard. So it was like, why is the? Oh, anyway.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on either. Is Trish Stratus a Valley at this point, or which she's fighting a match later on, and I kept thinking to myself, who is Tyson Tomco?
I'm not sure Tyson Tomco knows.
No.
I
Make sure Tyson Tomco's still alive. I don't. Yeah, is an American retired professional wrestler. I don't like speaking ill of the dead.
Whew. Anyway, let's just cleanse the palate and move on to Shelton versus Randy. This was fantastic. This was absolutely fantastic. This was exactly what you needed after that. A nice palate cleanser. Shelton, I know if Cammy was here, I was going to use the comparison that Shelton kind of reminded me a lot of, I mean, just in terms of pure athleticism and that, he's almost like an old-fashioned territory star.
Yeah.
Like, I was going to make the suggestion to Cammy that it kind of reminded like Bill Watts and the Junkyard Dog, like in Mid-South and that. I see a lot of appeal in that kind of angle for Shelton and that, but oh God, he's just so crisp and so good. Yeah. And Randy is on fire as well.
It's one, you've got one of the safest workers in the business, and for me, pound for pound, one of the most underrated workers in the business. It will never not frustrate me how Shelton Benjamin never got his flowers. Is he because he came back?
He's still signed on Raw.
Yeah, okay. Because it's one of those, when he came back, I was just like, but you need to go the distance with him, like you have with Lashley as well. Because again, in his first stint, he just didn't get his flowers. He was an incredibly good, incredibly athletic wrestler, and you watched him, and it was fantastic. You believed he was throwing this guy around the ring, and it's the same with Shelton Benjamin. But I'm a simple man as well. I'll see Ric Flair take a back body drop, and I'll start hooting like a chimp.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's like the wrestling fans will cheer somebody getting chopped, somebody saying woo. I still pop when Steve Austin comes out and just like stands in the ring.
You know, Ric Flair, he's walked into the ring. You know what's going to happen next. You know he's going to take a back body drop, and you know he's going to sell it. But still, it's just great to see.
Well, that's the thing about wrestling. It's like a buffet, isn't it? I mean, you can get your kind of like your big main kind of like pop spots, so to speak, because you've got your legends, you've got your high spots for your Jeff Hardys, and then you've got your technical wrestler guys, your Ortons and Benjamin and stuff, who just put on that, as you said, like a crisp match. I mean, this match was nothing fancy. It was just so enjoyable because it just flowed so well.
I enjoyed the misdirection in it as well. I think there were a good few points where you could have ended it and it would have been a fantastic finish, like when Benjamin had Ric Flair in the figure four and then rolled up Orton. You were like, surely he wins it. And no, he kicked out. And that finish in the end where Benjamin cross bodies him, I think with the benefit of hindsight, we're like, well, surely he's going to RKO him here. He's going to RKO. That's what happens. It's an RKO out of nowhere. No, jumps on it and then rolls him up for the win. It was fantastic. It was just the misdirection in it, not knowing which way it's going to go.
Have you ever seen a wrestler that can make wrestling look so easy, more so than Randy Orton? No. I mean, a lot of people criticize his style and say he's too safe, he's too mundane, he's too this, too that. But I mean, Randy Orton's been the better part of 20 years, and they're in the kind of main spot. And you watch his matches now, and you never really see a bad Randy Orton match.
No,
he just does what he does so well. And I think it was Jim Ross said recently, I actually believe Randy Orton's the greatest wrestler in the world currently. And whether I agree with that or not, I wouldn't argue him.
No, I wouldn't disagree.
He's got the best drop kick in the business working today. I would stipulate that, no problem. And what I really, really liked about this is there was no wasted time. Like they had their time, they went and it was like segmented. It was automatically just blocked bit by bit, like I skipped over this because I didn't really want to talk about it, but in the Jericho Tomco match, they do a bear hug spot. And obviously, I absolutely despise the bear hug spot. Like, I know it's fuel to make the face get his comeback and all that, but, you know, Jericho sat there, he's got both arms free, and he's in, you know, it's like, I know you're not supposed to say, oh, what would happen in a real fight, but it's like, you'd fish the eyes or something like that, just try and just block it, but there's, whereas this, it's just A, B, C, D, E, it's so brilliantly fluid.
Yeah. I think there's criticism of Orton that he's too safe, but again, you know, a master craftsman with silken hands, putting 20 years into his craft. Of course, he's going to be an incredibly safe and consistent way of working, which is what you want if you're a wrestler.
Exactly, and that's just something you want to wrestle if you're a wrestler as well. And Bret Hart spoke about that many times. It's like you get these guys in their strong style and stuff, and I like watching a good strong style match a bit as much as anybody. But it's pro wrestling.
And it's worked.
Yeah.
Emphasis on worked. Like I you know, every couple of days there'll be like a new thing on Twitter, and it's either the match from Japan or the match from NXT, where it's Walter and that, and he's like blistering a guy's chest and all that. I'm like, I mean, fair enough, it looks rough, but ease up, guys. You know.
And I can enjoy it. I watched, and I recommended this in the group chat. Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa. And it's just, it's Walter versus Rampage Brown. Both matches actually were just total fights. Just two, especially Rampage and Walter, two big, massive, like Godzilla, King Kong type guys battering each other. And yeah, I can enjoy that. But at the same time, I don't want to see Randy Orton and Shelton Benjamin do that.
No.
They're not that kind of wrestlers. I mean, that's it. Randy Orton, the safest worker of this. This is the guy that took a legit elbow off Brock Lesnar as an angle.
Yeah.
And got criticised for it, so he can't really win, can he?
No,
he's not.
There's a real difference here between being overly cautious and putting the work in, which he does.
Mm-hmm. Well, you often heard the thing about Randy, wasn't it? During his kind of formative years, he was accused of having an attitude and stuff like that. But I think the work speaks for itself. Like, he never hurt anybody, never stiff, never, And I was thinking recently about this. Like, sometimes you'll see the things on Instagram or Twitter that it's like a picture of a belt, and it'll be like, who's the first person in your mind when you see this? Like, they'll do the Winged Eagle, and you'll think it's either Brett or Hogan or that, or you'll see the European one, and you'll think either Davey Boy or Deal or that. I was thinking, like, in the pre-match thing when Randy's got, like, the old-fashioned IC, but it's got the big globe in the middle, I was thinking, who is actually, like, the first person I think of when I think of that? And I was thinking, Randy and Shelton, they're up there. Like, that is, that's, I wish they could have done, if anything, even longer, but obviously I know they had big plans for Randy and that, we're giving him the big strap later on, but I wish that this could have been more of a program. Anyway, we've got the women's four-way Giggity coming up. It's Trish and Lita. Well, Trish versus Lita versus Victoria versus Gail Kim. This wasn't long, which I enjoyed it. To tell you the truth, I'm going to get on a limb here and say it was brief, but I'm running out of things to say. You guys just block it.
I just straight up don't like fatal four ways. I just find there's too much going on and it's too confusing. But no, I enjoyed this. I think Gail Kim deserves a lot of credit in this match. She was really. I forgot Gail Kim was part of the company at this point, but no, she was very good, and she was very good value for the spots she was in as well.
Yeah, I love Gail Kim, and it's funny when this match started and she walked out. I'm like, Gail Kim was in WWE in 2004. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't look right. It's like if I watched like Daniel, I don't know. It's just I'm trying. She looked at the era. She looked at somebody that went to WWE after, like maybe 2010. And then you look at her workout, but I forget she was in it this early before her TNA run and stuff. Cause I'm just so synonymous with her in TNA, and I think she's one of the most underrated women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
Of the last 10 years, and my only problem with this match, and I agree Fatal 4 was kind of a mess, but 4 minutes, I mean, this is just like, I think they could have done a bit more with it because there's a lot of talent involved in this match. And Tyson Tomco is fucking still there.
He is everywhere, man.
I was listening to the Kurt Angle pod that's just came out kind of recently, and he's talking about he's just absolute. Well, he didn't. I think there was a frustration, but he didn't just come right out and say he hated them, although you could tell he'd hated them, was triple threats and fatal four ways. Because when obviously it's just you and one other guy, it's quite easy to block it and segment it and say, okay, here's what we're going to do in part A and here's what we're going to do in part B and that. Whereas with a triple threat and you're having to negotiate with 2 or 3 other guys, it's like, okay, so you're just going to lay on the mat for 4 minutes and then, this, and then you need to come. Like, there's huge chunks of this where it's just Trish and Lita. And Victoria's in it for like 1 quarter.
Yeah. And that quarter is a minute.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of go time negotiate. And it's quite funny, I was thinking about this. I'm sort of slowly losing my affection with the idea of triple threats and fatal 4-ways. I wish it was just... Because this could have either been, Trish versus Lita, feud match of the century, the grudge match, because those two already had numerous things. But I would have liked to see Gail Kim versus Victoria for the strap on its own.
I love Gail Kim. I think she's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame that she didn't get much a chance. And WWE, if you listen to Jim Ross talking about it, the reasons for it are entirely to do with aesthetics, which is bizarre when you think about it.
Yes, we've all seen the tweet.
Yes.
Right. Should we just move on to something less controversial, which is Eugene versus Coachman? Nobody wants to say anything. I'll understand that. I'll initiate.
Who's going first?
Right.
Okay.
You know what? I'll take the bullet. I'll take it. It's just no sweat off my ass. Right. So, sometimes, like, we've all seen the Beyond the Mat documentary, right? When Droz is in Vince's office, and Vince looks at him and he goes, because of your ability to regurgitate on command, we're going to call you Puke. And sometimes, like, a guy's backstory will factor into what gimmick they get. So, for instance, Scott Hall was talking about this. He obviously grew up on strict military father and all this, and he negotiated and he was going to be a soldier. They were going to give him an army guy gimmick before he said to Vince, have you seen Scarface and that? And he pitches the Tony Montana gimmick, and the rest is history. Obviously, Bob Holly was, I think he was either had a job in NASCAR or he was obsessed with NASCAR. Whatever the story was, he started out as Sparky Plug. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what the hell did Nick Dinsmore tell Vince to get the Eugene gimmick? What the fuck? Oh, God.
He is actually inspired by a real person. It was one of the, I think it was somebody in the ring crew, I think it was, his son had autism, and Nick Dinsmore got the idea of the character for that and pitched it to Vince. This wasn't a Vince idea.
Oh.
Right, this isn't a gimmick that I don't even think is necessarily aged badly. I don't think it was necessarily, I think it aged badly after the first match. You see them. I don't want to take offence on behalf of a community, and it's a tough one because I don't think they were doing it to mock. I genuinely don't. I don't think this was Vince just trying to take the piss type thing and try to bury Eugene. But I think Dinsmore began on this kind of character to try and mock him, make him look stupid, and in turn offend loads of people. I genuinely felt they thought we could make some kind of sympathetic babyface here. And whether we like it and whether we can look back and say it was insensitive or whatever, it was over as hell. The crowd were really, really into Eugene. And maybe I'm wrong here. I can't speak for the fans' attendance. It seemed to be for the right reasons. I didn't like the fact that this guy was getting bullied. And take away from a wrestling point of view, just look at a story point of view. You've got this character. I mean, his first match with Lance Storm. Lance Storm got heat by slapping him about and bullying him. And Eugene became sympathetic. From a storyline point of view, it worked. From a presentation point of view, even Rain Man's problematic today.
Yeah.
So it's like the presentation, it's a kind of case, say, should you have done it? Probably not. Like I said, I don't want to get offended on behalf of anybody else, but I mean, I listened to a podcast with Nick Dinsmore and they said a lot of children with additional needs liked the character because they saw someone that was like them on a card with people that weren't like them, if that makes sense. Like, they know they're not going to be John Cena, they're not going to be Undertaker, they're not going to be Randy Orton, but they saw somebody that thought, well, we can relate to them. I'm not saying they should have done it. I'm just trying to kind of devil's advocate type thing. I'm not defending the character, I'm not defending the presentation, I'm not defending what they did. I'm just presenting a different viewpoint from what I've heard.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's very, very clumsily done at best, character and angle. But like you said, if kids with additional needs did see someone in Eugene, and he was in this match, like I said, to you last night, it was a case of I was actually surprised remembering how over he was as well. And it was like legitimately over as well. I think you could have had fucking Hogan walking out and would not have got the reception that Eugene got, but there were signs in the crowd that were, really positive. And I think, it's still when kayfabe was very much a thing. And I think, to see a character like Eugene going over and winning, people were very much behind it. I think maybe it was, well, not maybe, it was wrong to have heel characters bully him for the sake of getting cheap heat. But again, at the end of the day, I think if people did take something positive from it, then that is a good thing. I'm not saying they were right to do it, but at the end of the day, if something good did come of it, and kids did relate and did feel like they too could become a wrestler, because everyone who watches wrestling when they're a kid wants to be a wrestler, then good.
I don't want to say they made a silk purse out of His ears. There's a few missteps during this, but again, it's the crowd's particularly in Eugene. The bit where at the start where it looks like he's folded himself into a bowling ball, and coach is not a worker, so more props to Nick for pulling this thing over the finish line. But there's the bit when the Irish whip coach over the rope, and Eugene gets on top of him and starts slapping his ass around the crowd and around the ring, and obviously the crowd gets volcanic and all that. That's great. That stuff was fantastic.
There's some good comedy spots in there as well.
The second half, when Eugene goes into the crowd and starts playing with a toy teddy, and a woman comes down and starts giving him cookies, that was when it fell apart, unfortunately, in my opinion. But there is a good half of a performance in there.
It's that kind of problem in it with wrestling in general, I would say. Not even that. This isn't a WWF issue. It's just wrestling in general. They don't have a tendency to turn things down. They see something working and turn it up to 11.
Yeah.
And then they usually kind of take it too far. Nick Dinsmore can work. He's a great worker. And it was strange watching this. Why is he wrestling Jonathan Coachman? Why does Jonathan Coachman seem to be featured in quite a lot of matches around about this era? I find that weird.
That's what I want to know.
At large, punishment for running his illegal gambling racketeering thing.
Oh God, that's so funny. That is so funny. It's fucking horrible.
Can't go to jail.
It's just absolutely fucking horrible. But my God, it's so funny.
You would pay good money for CCTV footage of Coach, trembling, getting out the cop car, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Just to kind of wrap up the Eugene thing, I would not tell anybody they were wrong to be offended by it or they had issues with it and stuff. And it tells me people working at autism specifically, they are portrayed in a very caricature way in TV, in movies, at the best of times. And let's be honest, wrestling's never going to be the most subtle form of entertainment when it comes to portraying a character. These guys are the actors.
It's very much sledgehammered in. It's very much forcing the point across. And obviously, autism is on a spectrum, and it has it comes in many different forms and many different traits. But with wrestling, it just forces the issue on fucking everything. Yeah, to be honest. But like you said as well, it's still a lot better than what Sia's been doing.
Yeah, and that's almost 10 years later, and we really should know better. If we didn't know better then, we should know better now.
Yeah.
And that's horrific, that portrayal. That's really bad. And it's that kind of thing. It's like with wrestling, there's some storylines you will not tolerate, but you would tolerate it elsewhere. Like the Lita angle with Kane and the abortion and stuff like that. And the wrestling likes the abortion angle and again. For some weird, if you watch that in a soap opera, you wouldn't even bat an eyelid. You watch it in wrestling, all of a sudden it's bad taste. Wrestling does have that bloodline type thing where, yeah, we know it's a work, we know it's storyline, we know it's not supposed to be real, but you're not as forgiving of bad taste angles in wrestling as you are elsewhere. Right or wrong?
Yeah, even not. Well, yeah, they end up being bad taste angles because it's wrestling. But again, I want wrestling to be socially conscious, but at the same time, is it really the place to be having a discussion about abortions and miscarriages and getting to understand people with additional needs? I imagine in a lot of cases there is goodwill, but I'd rather see a hard hitting and thoughtful miscarriage storyline on something like Coronation Street.
I think the reason the whiplash is so different for stuff like this, I mean, you look at 10 years prior, 1994, none of that stuff existed on WWE TV. It was Razor, it was Diesel, it was Shawn, it was Brett, Yokozuna, and Owen Hart, and all this, and it was very, multicolored, and the big glowing golden WWF logo and stuff like that. Stuff like that wouldn't have even been fathomed in 1994, and by 2004, it seemed like all bets were off. They were one bad day away from doing a UFO storyline.
Again, it was that when they were talking, we need to be more like Jerry Springer.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just Jerry Springer. It's just you're trying to. You're on one hand, we've got demons who they killed their parents in a fire. We got the strongest fucking people in the world, but hey, here's real people and real storylines, and it's like, pick one, man. Pick one. You're good at doing these strong men came from space angle, but you're not very good at the real people with real stories angle.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, you get the idea. The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble '94 dies and goes to heaven, and we see Soul ascend over the Titantron, or whatever the big screen was called at the time, and you just kind of think that and go, "Yeah, I'm cool with that. That's fine."
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Adding some kind of reality into it when you know it's not real, and that's the best thing about wrestling is when they blur that line to you think to yourself, "Oh, is this angle real or not?" That's when it really captures you because you're like, talk about the Orton and Lesnar. Did Lesnar shooting him? Did Lesnar go off script?
Yeah.
When it starts to make you think like that, you don't want to think like that when it comes to Eugene. You don't want to think like that when it comes to Lita and Kane and an abortion angle, miscarriage angle. You don't want to think, "Oh my God, was Lita really pregnant?" Because that's just a bit fucking weird.
Yeah, and it's one of those. You can tastefully play it out in the scenes and the sets of somewhere like Coronation Street. You can play it out in someone's house, and in the pub. But to have a woman have a miscarriage in an arena with 20,000 people, it's just fuck, man.
Yeah.
Should we just move on to Kane versus Benoit?
Let's move on to something less controversial.
Let's. All right, I'm going to go on a limb here. I absolutely hate Phil Mitchell era Kane. I never got the idea of taking the mask off him and stuff like that. I just absolutely hated this, and the whole thing about it turns out his scars were actually psychological and he's damaged on the inside. I thought, what the fuck is that? He had one of the coolest masks that you've ever constructed in that, and you just absolutely kneecap him in 2000. When was it he took the mask off? Was it 2003?
Must have been.
I think so.
Yeah, middle of 2003, I want to say. But God, I hated it. I
don't really mind this kind of era, Kane, because you've got that kind of Kurgan type thing about him. I don't mean the wrestler. I mean the Highlander.
Yeah.
And
Clancy Brown.
I like Kane. Just looks really, really evil. He just looks like a really evil kind of guy. And I liked him kind of laughing with his maniacal madness and stuff because he was still really evil. No, I don't like the psychological scar type thing because he was in a fire or not. because if he's in that fire and we all thought he was dead, then I don't think the scars would be psychological. I think he would have some kind of burn on him. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I just read too much of wrestling storylines at times.
To be honest, I don't.
Sorry, Nicola.
No, I just don't. To be honest, I don't think much of this era of Kane. To be honest,
Nah.
I'm trying to remember a point especially in this part of the 2000s where I was like, wow. I'm pretty sure there was a bit in the mid to late 2000s where he teamed up with Undertaker again, and that got me interested. But every time he showed up on like SmackDown or like Raw and eventually ECW, because that's where good wrestlers go to die, it was just like, what are you doing here?
I liked it when Taker came back as a dead man gimmick and Kane's in the ring selling it. And he could sell it because he's mask on, so he's kind of got the fear in his face and he's going, I killed you, you're not real, and he's kind of reaching his hand out to touch him and stuff like that. I think he had a lot of expression. I think he was really good at kind of playing that kind of really kind of evil, dastardly type character because he just looked one. No offense, Glenn, but
I mean, Glenn, like you look at when he first came in as Kane, like everyone remembers the cell match and the first blood thing with Austin and that, and he got the strap and then he loses it a day later and stuff like that. You just think Glenn, like he had the worst collection of gimmicks in the history of that. Yeah, the Unholy Trio. He was at the Unabomb and Jim Cornette's promotion. He came in, he was fake Diesel, he was Isaac Yankum and that, and then he finally gets this incredibly original looking outfit attire and that. He comes in, he absolutely sweeps everyone off. Takes my guy out of the equation in a mass versus mass match over the edge. Not that I'm bitter about it or anything, but it feels like in '98. He gets the strap. Okay, fair enough. He does lose it a day later, but he's always in that upper kind of echelon of guys who are going to work with Austin and Rock and all that. And then it slowly feels like in '99, okay, now he's the tag team guy with X-Pac and that. And then 2000, all right, now he's working with A-Train on Sunday Night Heat. And then 2001, he goes to he's like the last guy in the ring with Austin at the Rumble and that. You could use his Mania matches as almost like a kind of template in that. It's like 14, he's the sub-main event with Taker. Then 15, he's working with Triple H, who hasn't become the top guy yet. He's like still the leader of DX, but he's like upper mid-card. And then, Mania 2000, that's him and X-Pac versus, who was it again? Well, I forget who he was working with X-Pac. And then at Mania 17, he was the hardcore triple threat. And then 18 with Angle, and then 19. But it never ever felt like he was as hot as he was in '98. Again, if that makes sense. I know.
I suppose that's the kind of thing with the Kane character as well. I can see why they started changing stuff with it because Taker as well, the character had to evolve and adapt. And if Kane was still the Kane with the mask on, the way he came in, not speaking and stuff at this stage, I don't think he'd even be on the card.
I don't even really think he had a decent number of years to work as a bad guy. Like, if you look at the Attitude Era, Kane was on that Big Show thing about he flip-flopped. Like, 1 week he was a bad guy, 1 week he was a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, they never really gave him that opportunity. They should have put that strap on him for months. He should have... Steve Austin should have just narrowly... just crawled through it and been able to make off with the title and that, but he never really got that same kind of run in that. I'm not disputing the guy. Look, Glenn can work. He's a hell of a guy, he's especially for that size, he's routinely touted as like one of the strongest guys they've ever had. Awesome gimmick. But I just felt like by 2002, it was like they ran out of ideas and it's like, okay, we're going to take the mask off you, which is just so lazy.
That's not even the worst thing they've done with Kane, though.
Oh, no, we know.
No. I mean, we could do an entire podcast for that, but recently, do you know what they did with Kane?
Don't you dare mention KV.
They had an interview with Kane as Glenn Jacobs discussing being mayor on Raw.
But as Kane?
As Glenn Jacobs. And he won the 24/7 championship. And I'm watching this going, so we acknowledging by wrestling storyline here, Kane, we all thought died in a fire, was brought up by Paul Bearer, but left to go to the prom, was in a car crash, went back to a mental institution, escaped, tried to kill his brother a few times, kind of low-key 4 type thing going on there. Then takes the mask off, the scars were psychological. puts the mask back on, gets a job in corporate, wears a suit, puts the mask back on again, and now he's mayor. This is the same guy, but he's changed his name to Glenn Jacobs. I don't understand a suspension of disbelief. And then there's like, I don't know what's happening anymore, because a few weeks later it's Kane again, and I'm like, you don't even care anymore? But I mean,
you always hate when they try to bleed real life and kayfabe into one, because it's always just a car crash.
Especially with Kane too.
Yeah, it's the same organisation that's saying Kane is now mayor,
despite the fact he murdered the woman
of Kentucky, whatever it is, and on the same show, so to speak, Randy Orton has murdered a guy by burning him to death, but it's okay because he's not really human, and I'm fine with that. But it's I don't know, too much in there.
You kind of forgot. I remember there was. Do you remember the segment when Triple H broke into Randy's house? I know he was presented as this whole thing, and I'm just like, I'm just breaking and entering. That's illegal, mate. You shouldn't be doing that.
You can't do that.
Someone arrest him. Like, he's on camera and everything. The evidence is right there. Somebody do something.
Well, would you remember the first time I did something like that with Austin and Pillman, and it did look real?
But that's quite funny, because that's often kind of quietly touted as a big jumping off point for that, why the company went that direction. Like, apparently the ratings absolutely skyrocketed during that segment, and the USA Network approached Vince and went, can you do more stuff like that?
Pillman brought a gun out. 96 WWF.
I'm pretty sure Pillman accidentally dropped the F-bomb as well at one point in there. Like, in the heat of the moment. Yeah, and
Austin smashing the door trying to get in that, and all of Pillman's pals are holding. I remember watching that, and I didn't watch it for a Steve Austin documentary, and I had a clip of that on it, and I went, that. And I'm questioning, is that real? Is that bloodline type thing again? Because Pillman was excellent in that. He actually genuinely believed Austin was trying to break into this.
We haven't talked about Katie Benoit yet. Oh my god. Yeah.
Can I say something about Benoit quickly before we continue about this match? Can we just stop perpetuating the myth that Benoit's been airbrushed from history? He's on this card twice.
No, he's not.
Every podcast you listen to, Benoit gets mentioned for Jericho to GR, whatever, Kurt Angle, and they always talk about it's a taboo subject. It's not taboo anymore. It's not taboo to mention Chris Benoit, and he's on the network. They don't. You can't search him. Big wow. He has not been airbrushed. Like, Kurt Angle put that picture up fighting Benoit, and people are all saying, "Oh, who's that? Who's that?" It's Chris Benoit. He's on the network. You can watch him fight twice in the one match at Bad Blood 2004.
It's also a fact that the search on the network doesn't work. I searched for Bad Blood to watch it the other day, and I just got a load of old WCW pay-per-views. I was like, okay.
I searched Bad Blood and Royal Rumble 2021 came up.
Yeah, okay, so fair enough. Like, not that anyone needs this recollected, but obviously when you put Benoit into the search bar, you get nothing. You just get, somebody competes in singles action, some team competes in tag team action, and all that. Somebody conducts an interview backstage, but for some reason, like, they can't have a picture of Benoit, but they can they can give you the shortcuts to him, but they can't just come right out and say him for some reason. I don't have a problem with them not having a picture of him, but I wish, Christ, they would just drop the pretense of just Kane versus Benoit. Like, was it that hard just to include his name? I get the idea of not glamorizing the guy for obvious reasons, but
I'm cool with it. I actually don't mind this. I'm like, do you know what? Don't mention him. Don't go out your way to mention him any more than you have to. I think that's perfectly fine, because people can still watch all the Benoit matches they want to. But the network are just saying, but we are also not going to mention him. And newly, if he's been mentioned in the past, that's fine. We're not going to mention him again going forward. And you're like, well, fair enough. The guy did murder 2 people. That I think a lot of people seem to forget when it actually comes to Benoit's crimes. He actually did kill 2 people, and he's never gone in the Hall of Fame for that reason.
He'll never be a toy again. He'll never be in a Hall of Fame. He'll never be in any video games. It's like, I can understand putting a cap at 2007 and say we can't no nothing forward, but as opposed to like the kind of the retrospective and that, don't there's no revisionist history. You can't just pretend the guy never existed, which, to be fair, they haven't done, but it's just like, I wish to Christ they would just include his name. I'm not asking for pictures, I'm not asking for the big profile on the network and that, he's wins and that, just put his name, for Christ's sake. We all know who he was. Dark Side of the Ring did a 2-hour episode on him.
Well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? The other argument would be, well, you know how to find these matches.
Yeah.
We don't need to mention his name.
If you're that interested in seeing it, you know which card to look for.
He was actually really good in this as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, this was actually a fairly decent main event. Well, it wasn't really a main event, but it was the sub-main event. But it had no build. They were just told to pretty much work it on the spot, which, to be fair, they did. And I don't want to say barn burner, but I was really...
Am I going mad at it? Or did JR say Benoit's calling an audible?
No, I did. I said that. Yeah, they did. They dropped
I'm trying to work out.
The storyline was that Big Glenn was so jacked that Chris couldn't get him in the crippler, and that's why he just jumps around him and puts him in a roll up, which is a great spot. It's
a great spot, but I don't know. Again, I was like, that's you shouldn't say that's an audible, and that's not an audible. That's just
Vince would have threw a screamer had that happened nowadays. It wasn't quite New Blood Rising 2000.
No, I was going to say that.
Yeah. Oh God, what else was I going to mention? Oh, I like the. Do you know? God, I don't know if you were there, Thomas. But when we were watching that episode of WCW from 1985, they have the commentators kind of desperate. The interview section is right next to the bit where the guy comes out. Mm-hmm. I love that for some reason in 2003 and seemingly 2003 alone, the commentator's desk was right next to the Titantron. It's a weird little thing. Like, I'm not going to obsess over it or anything, but I prefer it as opposed to being like behind the ring. Like, it makes it look the arena bigger, if that makes sense. Adds a little bit more. Anyway, but yeah, this was decent. Again, versus Benoit.
It was a good match. Yeah.
It was a good match.
It was still there. It was a nice kind of complementary of styles. Benoit's trying to chop down the mighty Redwood, and obviously Kane was selling for him like crazy. Let it never be said that they didn't. I mean, Glenn's just a total pro, so it could have very easily been a disaster, but they managed to salvage it. Anyway, I think we're all chomping at the bit to talk about the actual main event, which is Shawn and Hunter going 60 minutes in the cage. Floor is yours, gents.
Going to be controversial here.
Go for it.
Maybe not controversial. See, this match was too long for me. I don't mind a long match. This match was too long, and it was emphasised at the end of it when they kept going on about how long the match was.
Jim Ross actually says this has to be the longest cage match in history at one point.
And it just, to me, it felt like this was just a kind of like there was a lot of. It's very self-indulgent in that sense to kind of show, look, we're going to go up there and get the world record for the steel cage match.
There's a misnomer amongst the industry that the longer the better. Mm-hmm. By virtue of being 60 minutes, it has to be better than a 15-minute match. A 45-minute match is better than a half an hour match. There's a lot of dead time in this. Like, it's fantastic, it really is, but there's a lot of lying down time, which I'm saying a 60-minute match, by virtue of being a 60-minute match, has to be. But yeah, I get where you're coming from.
But this was hyped up as it's a long running rivalry. It was quite a bloody and violent rivalry as well, even by wrestling standards. And you don't want the quote unquote last match, the end of the rivalry, to be a 15-minute singles match. You want something like this where they're absolutely just knocking the shit out of each other. And bleeding to the point where they are both lying on the floor. And at the end of it, the fact that they just dragged out them leaving the ring for so long as well. I think the time limit justifies the rivalry and the signalling of the end of it as well. Because after having the street fight and the elimination chamber and the 3 stages of hell match and the triple threat, you need this as the ending. You can't have a half-arsed finale.
What did you think of the actual ending of the match then? It won my pedigree after all that.
I mean, it's a 60-minute match, and it was a false finish every 30 seconds. So,
I don't know how else you would have ended it, to be honest, because obviously you can't get counted out.
They already done the double count out finish at the Rumble of that year, so they couldn't do that again.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. A pedigree on a chair, maybe something a bit kind of.
Yeah.
For me, this kind of match, they've done everything for me in the first 10 minutes. Bust open, or the kind of high spots, like everything really violent to me happened in the first 10 minutes, and it kind of dragged through the middle and then picked back up towards the end. It was just like, I think for me watching it, I seen everything I wanted to see within the first 15 minutes. I'm not saying it should be a 15-minute match. I'm quite happy with like half hour match, whatever. I don't mind a 60-minute match either. Like, watch the Iron Man match. For me, that's why the greatest matches ever was shown in Bret at WrestleMania. For this, I don't think what they did in the match justified the length of it.
Yeah.
There's that spot at it's either the halfway point or is it just starting off when Sean brings the ladder in and then he climbs it and then it looks like he's trying to use the grid at the top of the cage to like leans himself forward and then get enough swing to do the elbow drop on that. But it felt like it was kind of I didn't think it worked the way it was planned at that point. I don't know if any of you guys felt about that, but other than that, I mean, Jesus, you mean to tell you that those two guys were fantastic. I mean, like as it's starting off, just the work, I've used this word crisp a lot, the crispness of the worked punches and that, it's just, it's so smooth to begin with.
Yeah, I think the ends quite literally justify the means here as well.
I think maybe more so Hunter than Sean. It's quite funny, Sean always gets accused of being like the guy who kind of brought the business forward and that with the DX stuff and coming out in the shots. Hunter's always struck me as kind of like an NWA throwback. Like he always likes his 70s, 80s stuff. Maybe more so than his 90s stuff. Like you can tell, like he always wants like the old, Barn Burner, Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, we're either going 45 to 60 and that, and it's going to be a headlock every 4 minutes.
I mean, his love of the 70s and 80s is evidence in his style, to be honest. He makes a big thing of the Arn Anderson spine buster. I mean, you could credit him with like really rescuing Ric Flair's career as well. With Evolution, because Ric Flair was really in the doldrums for quite a while, and bringing him back and reminding people how good Ric Flair was in Evolution as well. I think it's one of those, because obviously a lot of guys from that era obviously grew up watching NWA, watching the territories, but he really pays homage to that in the way he works.
Yeah, if you just look at
Again,
I don't know why.
Harley Race High Knee as well.
Yeah,
the figure 4. He's a product of he's quite literally a product of his generation.
Yeah, and no pun intended, but Triple H is a student of the game. It's like you can see that and how he kind of wrestles and stuff, and that. It's always easy to remember, like Triple H's so-called quote-unquote reign of terror. Remember this time, he seemed to have the belt every 2 minutes, and I remember like not watching a lot during this time, but felt every time I put on like the highlights, so Raw, SmackDown, and Saturday morning, he had the belt at but most times than not.
Well, right, let's just address this now and then. Like that belt never looked out of place on him.
No.
You look at like the Raw roster in 2003. It's it was him, like RVD, Kane, Jericho, and that. I'm not saying. Well, maybe I'm a little bit, but do you not think the world title would have looked a little bit out of place on RVD or Kane?
No. I'm not saying he shouldn't have had the belt. I'm just saying, like, people remember that for Triple H, especially for this era and the kind of politicking and things like that. They don't give him enough credit for how good he actually was.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the whole thing with wrestling, isn't it? And I was watching a video of Cornette when he was talking about Sting in early 90 WCW. It's like people want to see the face chase the belt. But when the face actually gets the belt, it's like, I don't know. They like the idea of them chasing it a lot more than actually having it, which I think is probably more appropriate in that. Because I mean, we're seeing now, Benoit, it's like the dirt sheet, the Smarks existed, online and Twitter and that had been around back then. It'd been like, 2001, Benoit has to get the belt. It's like, look how good he is, look how crispy he is. People want, I'm sure, so if you probably did want to see Benoit chase the belt, but then he got the belt, and I mean, was it worth it?
No.
The heel having the belt, and especially like someone like Triple H, you love to hate him as well. And obviously, when he wins by playing dirty, it's almost a case of we'll get you next time. You don't want next time to come. You always want the face chasing the belt, and like that Triple H, he'll get his. And you're right. When he gets his, you're like, okay.
Is that it? There's always a bit more of because the version that you have, the images you have in your head of the face with the belt's always a lot more better than it actually is, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose again, the symptom of that is John Cena with the belt, like from 2005 to 2010. It's a case of, for the love of God, can someone just batter him?
Melt off him.
Someone just beat him up.
Somebody. But then, like, Edge, they were onto something when they put it on Edge. Like, Edge was the goat bastard at that time, as we've already said. Like, when it never looked out of place on him.
Because I remember I fucking hated Edge. I just could not fucking stand him. Every time I saw him, I was
felt
like,
completely the opposite. I'm like, yes, you bastards.
No. But I saw him, and I was like, fuck, I hate him. Fuck, this fucking guy, man. But of course, every time he came, Edge, fuck, he's here, yeah, fucking, oh. And when he retired, man, I was absolutely devastated. Because I loved to hate Edge. Adam Copeland, I absolutely love Adam Copeland, but it was just a case of just Edge. It was fucking Edge. Just he needs to be in every match, and it's like, Edge won. I hope we never see Edge again.
I actually thought he was leaving the business to go and do acting. Like, I remember, like, because I was going to follow him on Instagram a couple of months ago, and I saw that he was in Vikings. I was like, you were in Vikings?
Yeah, he was in a lot, man.
Yeah.
I can't remember what else he was in, but
he's in a film called Money Plane, and I only know about this
I've seen that, yeah.
I watched the clip from the Honest trailer for the Oscars, and it shows you a clip for that with Kelsey Grammer on Edge. But yes, I think people forget sometimes. Here's the issue I've got with kind of the smarts. They forget that heels are supposed to be bad guys, and you're not supposed to like them. They want cool heels. They want an NWO heel where they can cheer. And you get a guy like Roman Reigns, for example, who wins at Mania, and people are booing, and it's like, well, you're supposed to boo him. He's a heel. No, but I'm booing the booking. Oh, fuck off now, no. Stop trying to be smart. Stop trying to be smart. You're supposed to boo because that's not who you want to win. That's how wrestling's supposed to be. You boo the bad guys and cheer the good guys. If you want to be in between, fair enough. But Triple H, you're supposed to boo Triple H. You're supposed to boo Triple H.
I just could never boo Triple H. That's where I fall apart, man.
That's the thing because people did, and Sean's clearly sympathetic babyface here. And Triple H is clearly a lot fucking bigger than them, so it makes sense for him to bounce him about and batter him. And Shawn Michaels is coming back for the career-ending injury, and this was a 2-year feud. I like long-term storytelling. I do.
It's quite funny because around about this time they had the Off the Record with Michael Landsberg, which was a series. You can watch all the clips on YouTube and that, but he used to like interview wrestlers and all that from about, I want to say 97. I think the last one was about 2010. I'm pretty sure he had some CM Punk, but there's an interview where he has with Triple H in like 2004, which is the height of his, alleged reign of terror and all that. And Paul comes off like the most sensible guy in the world. He's supposed to be this absolute villain on screen and all that, just busting people open and that. And he's talking this very controlled, ultra like calm manner with Michael Landsberg. It's like, well, everybody doesn't really have a booker. Vince is the closest thing we have to a booker and all that. And it's like, it's just you do not get bad guy vibes off him whatsoever.
He's a very intellectual and measured guy. To be honest, I don't know if there's anything on record, but the whole time he's been, he just seems very sensible. And I've got his book as well, the one that's like half autobiographical, if that's a word.
Is that the one with the pictures?
Yeah, and the bodybuilding book as well. There's some funny pictures in there because obviously they've got pictures of him like mid pump, and he's just pulling the stupidest fucking faces, man.
Gotta be careful how you use that word in Scotland. But
oh yeah. No, Stephanie does get mentioned, but it's usually just pictures of him in the gym. But yeah, in that book, he comes across as very, very measured, very sensible, very, very polite as well. I think it's one of those. I think as much as I've loved Shawn as a wrestler, I wouldn't like to meet him.
Well,
but with Paul, I would love to just sit and chat with him as well.
I think you can even see that nowadays, like even on his socials and that. NXT is a throwback brand. Like as you look at the ring, you look at the size of the audience and all that. You look at it's got that lovely kind of minimalist lighting that I'm really infatuated with. Like it's so stripped down. It's so bad, and that's what I think most people love about it. It's not LED. Well, do they have an LED banner? Well, whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter if they have an LED banner, but it's not so overproduced. Like God, not that any excuse to rag on the modern product and that, but it's like you don't need 50,000 lighting rigs. It's like everything's so.
Ever since it went to HD,
it's so show busy.
It just looks really like it. You know when there's an exposed like fluorescent light and the room is just like really bright and really white and it's just really hard to look at. I'm like that. I get before that with Raw and SmackDown, they had the massive Titantrons, but you could just still stick with them forever, man. They were perfect. But now you got these absolutely like gin palaces of Titantrons, and it takes them like 5 weeks to get down to the ring, and it's like you don't need that. You need a ramp, bit of pyro, nice video, and get in the ring.
Yeah, it's just. I'm gonna actually have to start watching NXT at some point because I've watched the odd episode here and there, but I will actually probably need to sit down and follow it because it seems to be like the faraway brand that Paul has the most creative control in. Not that
I would like to see him in control of the Fed.
Patience, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming, but
is it though? Because
I feel like because what we've just said there, that feels like we're already putting pressure on Paul. Like there's this great belief that when Vince shifts off the mortal coil, obviously we're not waiting on that, but it's like when Paul inherits the throne, for all intensive purposes, it's like he's going to deliver it to the promised land. Like a million different people want a million different things from WWE, and that's the problem.
It's going to take time, but I think it will go to a very, very good place because again, but again, you don't want to rip everything out because I think just out of respect for Vince and what he's built, I think he's not even cold. You turn around, like, right, this can fuck off, and you can fuck off.
And we can talk about people can talk about the kind of ratings with Raw and all the wars and go all out.
But I love the idea, like Thomas just phrased that, like Paul's going to be like the Gordon Ramsay. You out.
Roman, I like your style. Would you mind make it so hard to cut you?
No, I think people need to stop comparing wrestling to what it was like during the Attitude Era in terms of I mean in terms of like the actual business side of it. So they'll say, Raw had a 1.2 this week, so the business is on its arse. Vince sold the network to Peacock for billions. He made an absolute fortune with the Fox deal. The WWE is not doing badly. They're just doing differently for what they used to do. And you see a segment on Raw and people say, I think it was Bobby Lashley and Rusev for the whole cuck angle they went and had with Lana. And people were saying, this is the worst segment ever. It was the highest rated segment on YouTube. Roman Reigns was called during this kind of good guy routine. People were saying they didn't want to see him, but he was always hitting the numbers on YouTube. The game shifted. Guys like Brian Alvarez are always like, look, AEW beat NXT again. Vince doesn't care. He is raking it in elsewhere.
Yeah.
The ratings don't matter anymore.
They'll put a fucking highlight clip on YouTube and God only knows how much ad revenue they're going to make out of it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, as well, people like, why is Bad Bunny on WrestleMania? That guy has probably made your lifetime salary in selling T-shirts for one evening.
Do you know, I can't remember that show number now, but he was one of, if not the highest merch seller after the Rumble that weekend
exactly.
on the WWE shop.
Why is this Latino rapper here? And it's like, because he fucking makes bank. Just because you don't want that guy there, Vince knows that guy's gonna put a fucking new coat of paint on his jet.
I mean, it's staggering. Like, I think, have you seen the music video for Booker T? I forgot just how fucking jacked he actually was. Like he's huge. I don't know how that's compared to like Bad Bunny and that. Obviously, I know Bad Bunny's not going to be sizable in that.
But Booker looks more jacked. Like Booker looks more jacked than when Booker was at peak.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more mass as well.
Mm.
Did you watch the Bad Bunny match at WrestleMania?
No, but I heard it was very good.
It was done very well.
Canada, did they not?
Yeah. done a Canadian Destroyer as well, but they booked it really well in terms of like he got enough offense to make him look good, but it wasn't like battling the Miz, ragdolling about the ring and stuff like that. But the Miz and John Morrison were the stars of that match because he made Bad Bunny look like a wrestler.
Yeah.
That's nothing against Bad Bunny. He put the work in. It made he was athletic and stuff. And
he seems very respectful of what he's doing.
Yeah, it was when Stephen Amell had the match with Stardust in the tag team match. You could tell he put the work in, but he wasn't there to get over on a legitimate wrestler.
Yeah,
he got a good kicking, which he should do because he's an outsider. I think they've done the celebrity thing well in recent years. When it comes to things like that. But you're right, these guys are making an absolute fortune for the company. Who cares if Bring Back the Attitude Era on Twitter doesn't like it? He's not paying Vince's bills, or the wrestlers' bills for that matter.
I thought the sale needs to go back like it was in '98. Like, is there not enough stuff on the network to keep you satiated? Like, even if you sat down and watched every episode of Raw and SmackDown and Heat and Velocity and that, you couldn't. Not in one lifetime. There's not that much content. Like, nobody has that much free time.
I mean, well, if you start at 98 and let's say it starts dropping about 2008, you've got 10 years of wrestling to watch. You're going to be taken into the 30s, man.
Do you remember when we initially pitched this? It's like we were going to do one pay-per-view each week, and we found out like there were 32 pay-per-views alone in 1999.
Yeah,
like it was beyond all reason. We couldn't do that.
No. And again, people that bring back the Attitude Era. This podcast has been an odyssey as to why you should never bring back the Attitude Era.
Yeah. You're welcome.
People on Twitter are like, oh yeah, it's shit. It's like, do you remember the fucking Godwins?
Do you like the Godwins? What about Southern Justice?
Yeah. Oh my God. How many of those 97 pay-per-views were Nod versus Lord versus the Godwins? You know, it's like Los Boricuas. That was it. We missed the hat trick.
Oh God, I was trying to remember who were those guys.
Those guys. You gotta have factions, pal.
Justice for Savio Vega.
I've never seen a man just shit all over tag team wrestling so consistently over his life.
Anyway, you marks. You fucks, you have your 32 pay-per-views alone in 1999 to get busy with. You know?
Go back, watch those 32 pay-per-views and tell me you want the Attitude Era to come back.
Yeah, so somebody had been caught smoking, so you make them smoke the whole packet. Yeah.
You like Godwin matches? Have a whole year of Godwin matches.
Why do you think I took you to those Attitude Era matches? For fun?
Yeah, that was the song.
Well, I didn't hear anyone
cheering. Watch all those Attitude Eras for fun. Well, I didn't see anybody cheering. Did you? We need to start reviewing Simpsons as well. That's what we're sorry, we're just going completely off track now.
And that guy on commentary, Mr. McWhat's his name?
Yeah. Anyway, we're really going to... God, I wish Cameron was here to discuss this and that, because he would rightfully drag us into the month for going
I reckon he had some real spicy takes on this, and again, they're never going to hear the light of day.
No, because once again, one of our members has bailed out at the last minute, which seems to be a running theme with us. Sorry.
No short
it's
time.
just going to happen. We're not all going to be there. We're not all four of us are going to be there to make the finish. But yeah, next week, Clash of Champions, 1993.
93?
Well, I'm doing it. What was the one with Austin versus Pillman?
Cool.
Feel free to left your own devices. Right, guys. Until then, I'm just going to sign off for now. Appreciate it.
I forgot something.
Go ahead.
Batista's fucking perm. What was all that about?
And on that note, I'm signing off. Adios.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.